I'm gonna follow Tyler around. We're gonna knock out the exterior, and we have a pool here too, and he'll cover some of the finds that we have on the pool. Let's go check it out.
So you can see this gutter at this point now is just dug a hole right beneath here that water is going to get trapped into. So ideally you'd want to fill in this low spot, add in a splash block or even an extension to get this water flowing away from the foundation area. If we're getting water accumulating next to the foundation for long periods of time over the course of years, we can end up with some little bit more settlement than we would typically see in that area. Another thing that we have here is exposed post-tension cable ends right on the edge here. So we just want to add a mortar cap over those so we keep the tension cables from building up a lot of rust and keeping that rust from traveling down the tendons as they go into the slab. Another thing that you can see from your angle as well is a textbook corner pop right here. So our brick and concrete expand and contract at different rates. So this can cause these corners to shear off. Now, we see these even on new construction homes, maybe not to the point where this is popping off like that, but what you want to remember is that your masonry is more or less a siding as opposed to a structural component of the house. It can give us clues of structural movement, but in this instance here, this popping off is only underneath the brick. It's not under your actual wood framing, which is providing the structural support for the home. So with this, you can patch it, you can leave it as is. If that corner falls off, it's completely fine, but just know it's something fairly common that we see.
Walking around the exterior over here, we noticed that we have a slightly wet spot on the side of the foundation here. And some people might say, oh, it's just the hose bib or I watered the grass before, but really this wet spot looks like it's consistent and it's been happening for a long time. And what makes you say that, or me say that, is that you actually have some algae growth here and the soil is really wet just in this location, but it's really that algae growth that's happening in this corner. And it takes a while for algae to grow and consistent water in that location. And just on the other side of this, we have a sink and a dishwasher. So there's a very good chance that this is leaking. We'll further investigate it and try to figure out if that's exactly what's happening. So whenever you're walking outside, don't ignore just like slightly damp areas. You have to see a damp area and be like, all right, well, why is this happening?
So it may be hard to see from your end, but there is some labeling on here, but they could at least go over the words so it's a little bit more legible. And then whenever we have these unused locations here, we would like a filler put in so that way you don't have an exposed area into the panel box. Okay. So this is going to be your standard fare, at least for us here in the greater Houston area, of a panel that's been replaced, but we're not on a new home. So we don't typically see all of the AFCI breakers put in after the fact, GFCI breakers put in after the fact. They're really replacing the old breakers and having the panel installed up to the code for when the home was built for the most part. They did separate the neutrals on the bus bar. We don't want those double lugged. The box is bonded right there, so that's good. Coming down on the breakers themselves, not seeing any burned or scorched wires, no double wired breakers. We would recommend putting some black tape around these unmarked neutral wires here just to let anyone working on it know that these are hot wires. But other than that, everything looks good in here. We got some wood rot right beneath the window over here. This is some original siding. Painting over it will buy you some time, but ultimately it's just gonna come down to replacing that section to give you new life on the material. Now, at this point, we wouldn't reuse wood siding. It would be better to just save it to replace all of this with hardy plank. Right where the garage meets the wall, we have a trim piece here that has been added that is in direct contact with the shingles. Now, every time it rains, water is going to run down the shingles and make contact with that material, which will shorten its lifespan over time. Now, ideally, you want about 1 to 1.5 inches clearance from that shingle material. So what we have here is the sprinkler backflow preventer. So this part coming up out of the ground, this is where your actual water supply is going to branch off and bring water to the sprinkler system. Now, something that we have experienced a lot is in the wintertime, people go to winterize this, and then you end up with the metal portion here cracking, which then results to a lot of leaking if you were to try and run the sprinkler system. So something that has been added in as a requirement for newer homes is this cover right here. It doesn't need to be directly in front of the backflow preventer, as long as it's between here and the water meter. This is a shut-off valve that is inside the ground. So then you can cut water off to here and completely empty this of water, so we have no buildup of pressure whenever we go under freezing conditions. Very helpful thing to have. Just getting another picture of the rusted steel lintel up above this second story window, and then we have some mortar that's missing on the sides. Now you can see that they've patched some of the mortar on the right side. It's a lot brighter color. We could use some mortar addition on the left side there where that edge of the steel lintel is exposed. So another good thing to pay attention to is where your gutters are mounted onto the roof structure. So right behind it will be what we call the fascia board. And you can see at the top corner right here, this gutter is angled up a little bit, but right behind it, there is some rotted, deteriorated fascia behind there. If your gutter is not installed correctly, then you can get water trapped in between the gutter and the fascia board, which can then cause rot over time. So the first thing I do when I'm inspecting a pool is I go and I turn off all of the equipment and turn on the lights to the pool, and if there's a spa, one on the spa. I like the water to be nice and still as I'm walking around, so that way I can see the structure and the surface as easily as possible. One thing I just noticed was the pool light is not on, and then you can see the bottom half of it is quite a bit darker, so there is some water that's accumulated inside of the pool light. Another thing we have down here, we have a single drain. Now, this was something common for the time period of the home to have. Now, very difficult to go and add in a second drain without going through a lot of work. So what people will do is put in an anti-vortex cover over this single drain. Now, what this does is it helps break up the power from the actual motor, so that anyone swimming over the top would not actually get stuck on top of the drain, because people have drowned from this issue before. So we do point that out as a safety concern. After doing one pass around on here, what I will say is, considering the age of the pool, this is in a lot better condition than what I would typically see. Not uncommon to see a lot of cracking in the pool surface or really worn surface that needs to be replaced. Very clean surface throughout, no staining, discoloration on the inside, no cracking on there. All the tile grout running around the exterior looks good, no cracking of the tiles. We'll have our common deck cracking going around, and it could use some sealant in between the decking and coping, but overall, especially considering the age, this is a pretty good looking pool structure. So now I'm just moving over to the pool equipment, getting everything booted up, so that way I can look at the pool while the equipment is running. So I just get it all going first, and then from there I'm just gonna walk straight back over to the pool and make sure we're not seeing any negative repercussions of turning the equipment on. Once I do another look around the pool after the equipment's been on, then I'll come back after the pool has had some time to run to see if there's any leaks that have developed at the equipment. Another goal with our blower system for the jets in the hot tub is we actually want majority of the water to stay contained within the spa, because when you're having this water constantly flow out, if you're using this hot tub a lot, well, you're going to cause soil erosion, which is going to lead to water pooling in this area, and it could cause some movement of the structure over time. So this would just be a tuning of the jets. We have a GFCI protected circuit for our pool equipment here, and what I'm noticing here is when I go to reset this circuit, it's been tripped, that it's not actually resetting. So we're gonna need an electrician to come and take a look at this receptacle and make corrections so that this is functioning. And we already know at this point that the pool light is not working, halfway full of water. So that may need correction first prior to being able to get this to work correctly. All right, so we're done taking a look at everything. So I'm just gonna shut everything back off and set it back to how it was when we got started. And the equipment's on a timer, so just getting that set back to how it was and it'll run by itself. Going on into the attic space. First thing I like to do when I get in the attic, if it is the one that has the water heater, then I will take care of the water heater first. So have a Bradford White unit. This one I know I'm gonna have to take a picture of that serial number and go and look that up so I can find out the age. But one thing we're seeing right here, we're definitely going to need to reset, is this flue pipe. So the carbon monoxide that this is going to create from running is going to vent out to the exterior. Well, if that vent pipe is not connected, well, then the carbon monoxide can escape into the attic space. If your attic isn't fully sealed up, that could seep into the living spaces, which would be a safety hazard. So that does need to be repaired. Another thing I'm seeing down here is no sediment trap on the water heater. So that would just catch any impurities before it goes into the actual system. It just looks like a hard line running off that has a spot that gas can or the impurities in the gas can fall into before it goes into the system. Over to the upstairs HVAC. So I start at the furnace and air handler, work my way over. Checking the vent pipe to make sure that's properly sealed from the roof level. We don't want any daylight showing around where the vent exits out. That could give you a sign that wind-driven rain would have a potential of making its way in the attic. Now, looking at the gas line here, we have this flex line running directly into the bottom of the cabinet. Now, this has caused fires in some areas, mainly in areas that have earthquakes. But another thing I'm seeing here is we have some exposed wires at the bottom here. Those should be completely enclosed. Also to mention, we don't have a sediment trap installed on this either, just like on the water heater. You can see our primary drain line. We have our insulation running up majority of it. Now, it would be a little bit better if it was running all the way to the edge. Here on the refrigerant line, this is insulated because this will condensate also, and it is not fully sealed at the edge, and we have some air leaks coming out right here as well. That large temperature difference between the really cold line and the hot attic can cause condensation to drip, and you can see that we have it down here in the pan as a result of that. Another thing, just hopping back over to the drain lines, is we do not have a PVC pipe installed onto where the secondary drain line is now. It is not capped off, so moisture could theoretically run through here, but we do want to guide that so that it does land directly in the pan where we want to, so then that can be transported outside to drip and let the homeowner know that the drain line needs to be serviced.
So in the attic space, what we have here is what we're seeing is a lot of compacted and insulation that looks like it's been trampled across at some point in time. This house has experienced rodent issues. We're not rodent inspectors, we're home inspectors, but we're not really seeing active rodent infestation, and we don't smell it. A lot of the times we can smell the rodents if it does appear to be active, but what we will do, we have to, is say we have rodent activity in the attic area, you want to have it further investigated because there's some things that we could be wrong on. We don't specialize in rodents.
In your attic space, you do want to pay attention and keep in mind how this attic space is breathing. This is not a spray foam attic, so we would expect some sort of intake air and then a way for the hot air to escape out the top. So We do have a power ventilator right here. We did have soffit vents around the outside, but we will want to make sure, and what you want to make sure looking in the attic as well, that if you do have ridge vents installed, that the sheathing has actually been cut to allow the airflow to flow out through the top of the ridge. And on this power ventilator, it's rusted and corroded. It does have a fan on, or controller on it, that is set to go off if it hits a certain temperature. It is higher than 90 degrees in here, and it is not running. So we do run into these not working pretty frequently.